ever since I was a shorty with skills. Once I locked Ben Stein down and brought me the field. Side, this is not me.
There we go. There we go. There we go. Come on, man. I need y'all to hit that like button, share the content, and then yeah, subscribe to the channel. We're doing our own production of it. It's a lot of different things.
Now, I don't know how you then justify saying that it is injustice that you are facing because somebody died. And people want answers. People want people held accountable for the things that happen. And it's, again, for me, in my opinion, I think that it's unfortunate. I think that somewhat this falls on the parents. I do give grace to the parents because I also understand that they're sometimes in our rebelliousness. I know I was a bit rebellious as a child, even though I was raised in a strong family household. And I came back to the foundation of the things that my father taught me and my parents taught me and my church taught me because it was put into me young. But I did go through a phase, probably a little bit before his age, where I was a bit rebellious. And I think that regardless of what happens, the biggest problem that we have here is that we don't know how to control our emotions,
I can agree
and
with that.
therefore we can't teach our children conflict resolution. And the person that is going to pay for it was the son that died, right? Because that was a father, and the children are the ones that suffer for the sins of their parents. Um,
Yeah,
I
I can,
squarely,
I
square.
can, I can most definitely agree with that. That's that's basically what it is. You know, you're not controlling your emotions. You don't know how to resolve an issue when it comes to being defensive, whatever the case may be, and your parents don't know how to do that as well. But there's always a but, and there's a rebuttal on that one too. That father may have felt as if there would have been um oh, that's a totally different subject, I think. But I forgot what the other situation was where somebody was hurt and then the father took action to his own hands. But yeah, it's a lot of that going on right now because I think our folk is getting tired and we fed up, you know, and it's looking a certain way. But in this case with the kid, yeah, he could have just took the L. Like they say, take the L, man. Get your ass whooped. Do it again, you know. And I believe he might have been able to size up the big guy and just whoop him. He probably felt like he wouldn't have won that fight. He wouldn't have won that battle, but he definitely could have put a dent in the war. You know what I mean? He could have definitely stood his ground and whooped his ass, and it could have went a different way. You didn't have to technically, you know, or literally get him up out of here. But that's how it goes sometimes. I think that when we're not aware of that, that's what occurs. That's usually what occurs. Oh man, what the hell?
Squarely place the responsibility on you
I
to
got the
teach your
wrong
children
thumbnail for this shit.
to not carry knives at school. I think that this subject has already been, um, it has been mined out. People have given their opinions on what should have happened and who could have did what and whether there's a racial element to it. I don't like the whole racial element to it. I don't like the fact that every time it's a black person or it's a white person that gets into a confrontation of the opposite or of another race or with another race that we automatically claim racism. It all automatically becomes a race war. That's not cool. But let me know what y'all think. Do you think that he should be charged as an adult? Do you think that he should be charged at all? And do you think that there's still a racial component that is bubbling over and that he will get off? Let me know what y'all think.
Hell
Make sure
yeah,
y'all tap
there's
into
a
the
racial
Patreon link is in the
component.
description. Also teach him.
Yeah, there's a racial component that's bubbling. And that's the part where I think our people are involved and they're speaking on it. A lot of us don't know how to react to shit, yes. They definitely they want to take matters into their own hands. And then a lot of people don't even know how to do that. You know what I'm saying? Mitty, what it do, bro? Salute to you. I think a lot of people don't even know how to do that shit. But then on top of that, they feel like if they do something, then they're going to get ridiculed or they're going to get hurt or something bad's going to come out of that. So a lot of different times, it still doesn't go the way it's planned. You could have a full-fledged plan intact, and it just
What's going on?
It just doesn't go the way you think it's going to go, right?
Well, now let's turn to this. Former First Lady Michelle Obama has been on quite the podcast spree these days,
Yeah,
and it feels like she's
Michelle Obama been doing whatever the hell she want to do out here.
airing
Well,
her.
I guess she is a public figure. She's a former First Lady, so yeah.
Her and, well, her own and President Obama's dirty laundry. Let's try to look at that.
What?
Sometimes I get in the bed and I'm freezing.
Yes.
And other times it's like, oh my God, take my skin off.
It's like the change in temperature is wild for any woman, anytime, but especially at this age.
It's a battle with a partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's always cold. And I'm like, do not touch. And sometimes I wake up hot and I'll wake him up. Did you touch the thermostat? You touched the thermostat, didn't you? He's like, it didn't, I swear to God. He now knows. He's afraid of the thermostat. I said,
Yo, the level of emasculation from this woman is insane. I'm not even sure what the purpose is of her going on this whole podcast tour, what this building a platform is. I don't know if it's one of those things where you see black women a lot of times say that they have to have some kind of purpose. They want to leave their mark on this world. You know, it's not with the legal justice system. It's not working on behalf of freeing inmates that wasn't wrongly imprisoned. It's not some meaningful cause. It's her wanting to get her stuff off. That's what it just seems like, man. I genuinely don't understand, because everything that she talks about that is relevant has something to do with her husband. It's always what he don't like and how she disagree with him. It's somewhat emasculating. And I know that women that's going to cape for is going to say something different, but it is emasculating.
I don't care what you do. Do not touch anything in this room after I go to sleep. Do you wear an eye?
You know what? I'm just not ready for that. No. I'm not ready to hear about her menopause and waking up hot. It's a lot. It's a lot for a First Lady. So I don't know if she's joking around or throwing shade at her husband. Question. Her latest comment to Airbnb CEO is certainly raising some eyebrows. Watch this.
You know, I have to say, Brian, if I'm a single girl out there and I find out that Brian Chesky is single and I can like stay in his house,
Here she
have
goes.
you ever?
There you go. Right to the relationship,
ever...
Brian. You don't have to be feel pressured.
No, but we've never talked.
This is strange, bro. This is very strange times we live in. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the First Ladies have had conversations with the world outside of the White House and outside of the. But there's a microphone everywhere. They're going to turn, but yeah, it's very etchy, very sketchy ways of conversation in the way that they're conducting themselves amongst each other. I don't know.
About
he
this.
just got here.
Have you ever?
Her and her husband have tried to set me up before, so
I'm very invested in Brian's love life.
It's almost like she's never been a First Lady before. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
She don't know that every single thing that she does is going to be scrutinized.
Exactly.
Now, remember, other First Ladies, they just get their bag, they be successful, they live off their life. She is very much a reflection of what we deal with every single day as regular human beings and regular men in the black community. Maybe not me, but most men. And it's unfortunate because I would have loved for her to be represented and to show herself to have a lot more class and have a lot more dignity. I remember when I seen Savannah James, and I always mention this because I think that Savannah James, LeBron James' wife, is the epitome of femininity, the epitome of holding it down, the epitome, like, regardless of how I feel about LeBron James' political statements or him endorsing Kamala Harris, I'm able to be objective enough to separate one issue from another. You know, what his performance is on a basketball court, from what his political stance is, from how it is that he projects himself to be a strong father in a household. They're all separate things, and I think that we need to separate them, even though they're pointing back to the same individual. And you don't often see women that play their role to a T. I mean, to a T. And it almost bothered me a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Because I can't be that emotionally invested in what somebody else's success is, but I am invested in what we are continuing to promote for the culture, because that is what's good for everybody, especially when it comes to setting the standard and having people meet expectations by how you live your life. You are an example to somebody no matter who you are. So when she had initially launched her podcast, I'm like, oh my God, here we go.
It looked different when she was in office, right? So now that she's left the office, you know, she's made a lot of different statements that people agreed with, you know, but yeah, to say if I was a single woman, I'd try to get with you. Yeah, because what happened to black love and all that shit? That black love shit it's almost like a myth at this point, you know, when it comes to the eye of the public. Because we'll say one thing in our households, but in public, no. It's forbidden. You can't talk that way. People are gonna look at you some kind of way because you're taking up for something that they see as toxic, or something that they see as they don't, you know, and not all black women, of course. 'Cause there's some great ass black women out here, and I know plenty of them. But for some of them, it just seems like they're a part of this goal, this agenda to continue to destroy the the black man. I got a couple clips too that I want to see if I can locate. I'm gonna put them somewhere that I can locate them. I want to play this because I felt like it was very. It was definitely about if Kamala Harris was the president, but then on top of that, it was about just how there's a few women on even on like YouTube, you know, that just takes it upon themselves to treat black men a certain way. They even act a certain way towards black men, you know, if they don't like them per se. We can all disagree with each other on things and topics like that, but some people just take it too damn far.
Oh, and to her credit, she kept it very, very general, very, very tongue in cheek. Oh man, I love my kids, or whatever, so on and so forth, which made for a very boring podcast, which is probably one of the reasons that it went away. Just be a mother. Y'all billionaires. You having a good time, you living life. It's awesome. But my point is that I didn't want her to say something to mess up our perception of her. And now, of course, there's going to be some people that say, well, why should people care about what your perception of somebody else is? Well, that is part of the reason why you are popular. It's called popular culture. It's one of the reasons why you get elected. It's one of the reasons why you're influential, right? It's not just to make money. It would behoove me to think that Michelle Obama is doing this to make money. I would like to believe that she's doing it in order to make an impact, or to have some kind of relevancy, or to have a sense of purpose, or doing something if she's doing it, because you can't convince me that it's for the money. They are already millionaires. Maybe she doing it for her brother Craig. I don't even know. He don't even seem like he's relevant. I'm not sure if anybody is necessarily checking for Craig on this podcast. But my point is that it seems like at every turn she takes an opportunity to either throw her husband under the bus or embarrass him by saying something that she shouldn't be invested in or emotionally invested in. Like, I think that there's levels. If I say something, then me as a regular YouTuber or whatever, so on and so forth, that just, maybe you guys love me, but, or maybe 500,000 people have subscribed to me plus, or whatever it is, is subscribed on other platforms. But that's not as relevant as being a former first lady and the wife of a former president of the United States of America, who just so happened to be the first black president of the United States of America. The impact is much greater. And so you have a greater responsibility to meet an expectation. I may joke and I may have, have tongue-in-cheek jokes that may or may not be relevant. She's a bigger representation of a broader group of people, and the stereotype often at times is earned, it's not necessarily given. So now that people are starting to look at stuff and they'll say, oh yeah, she's just a modern woman. Oh yeah, she for the streets or whatever. Can you blame them?
That's already working on our people though. It's already one of those things that it's already taken effect on our people. It's working on our people. It's already in effect, okay? See, no other U.S. president's wife has ever done this in the history of the nation. And she happens to be a black woman, right? African-American, indigenous, right? She's that, right? So when you see this occurring, it only leads to the narrative that, oh, it's because she's an African-American, black, indigenous woman. Because no other president's wife done this, So once again, the teardown is taking place. It's occurring, it's happening. No former first lady has ever done this. What is wrong with her? All right. So this is what the comments look like. It's to kill that perception once again. We may not be, and in what it does is it affects the way we look at our women. And then it affects the way that the women look at us. She's doing it. Oh, she's tearing them down. Well, shit. How many other black women or black indigenous women tear down indigenous African-American men, It's like a routine cycle at this point, even when it comes to all of the figures that have been, that led up in America. And they have been torn down too. I was talking about that earlier about like Michael Jackson and P. Diddy and stuff like that. Which we can go and get that kind of update, and then I'll roll up out of here. Diddy had like 5 names professionally. Diddy case update, which this case is just all about perception. It's just all about the man, Fair use.
Rapper Kid Cudi leaves federal court after taking the stand at Sean Diddy Combs' racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking trial and tells the jury about his Porsche being torched while he was dating Cassie.
This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me.
I look at 9 moments from the rapper's testimony and what had the courtroom laughing.
It's the destruction of the black man's character, man.
She was forced to go along with them over there. Johnson asked, and what, if anything, did Ms. Capricorn say about where she was at? Yeah. Ms. Cudi went on to explain why he was confused. Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson asked, you testified that Ms. Ventura told you Mr. Combs found out about us. What was your understanding of what Mr. Combs had found out? Ms. Cudi answered that me and her were dating. Johnson asked, and you also testified that you were confused when you heard that. Ms. Cudi answered yes. Johnson asked, why were you confused? Ms. Cudi answered, because I didn't think she was dealing with him. Johnson asked, and you mentioned that you went to pick her up. Is that right? Ms. Cudi answered, yes. Ms. Cudi testified that he drove Ventura to a hotel in Los Angeles about 15 minutes from his home. Then he got a call from a woman who was a friend of Cassie's and an assistant of Sean Combs. Her name was Capricorn Clark. Ms. Cudi said, Clark said, that Sean Combs and an affiliate were in my house and she was in a car. She was forced to go along with them over there. Johnson asked, and what, if anything, did Ms. Capricorn say about where she was at the moment? Muscati said, she was in a car outside of my house waiting for them. Johnson asked, and what, if anything, did Capricorn say about where Mr. Combs was at that moment? Attorney Brian Steele objected, and it was overruled. Muscati testified, in my house. Johnson asked, after you spoke to Capricorn, what did you do next? Muscati answered, I got in my car and went to my house. Johnson asked, that phone call? No. Johnson followed up, did anyone go with you when you went to your house after that phone call? Muscati answered, no. Muscati said he drove to his house. It was a 15-minute drive or so from the hotel, as I mentioned, where he was with Cassie. And on the way, he called Sean Combs. He had his number from years ago. He described what he said to Sean Combs. Muscati testified, I'm going to be very candid. I said, mother effer, you in my house? And he was like, what's up? I was like, mother effer, are you in my house? And he said, I just want to talk to you. I was like, I am on my way over right now. He was like, I'm here. Muscati said that Combs's voice was calm. He drove to his house, which he said had security cameras, but they weren't working that night. When he arrived, Muscati said the cameras appeared as if they had been moved to the side. Muscati said, some gifts that I bought for my family were opened, some stuff I got from Chanel, and then my dog was locked up in my bathroom. Our content shows just how important personal safety is, and that is especially true when it comes to protecting.
Oh, damn, I'm talking. My fault. So, what we will come to learn is that a lot of these things that's happening in America when it comes to seeing black men upon cases like this, you'll see this happen more often than less. Diddy, you see Kanye in the media a lot. You even see Jay-Z, but Jay-Z he always finds his way out of a lot of conversations. All of them basically. You know, it's a whole lot of different black guys. Whenever they say no, that power structure steps in and they let them know that we can still do as we see fit with your intellectual property, with you, with the human, with the entity, the business. We can get involved with that because we don't like the way you did it. We don't like the way you conducted yourself when it came to business or what the fuck we said we wanted you to do. So we're going to handle you accordingly to that. You know?
Johnson asked, was it your understanding that your dog's babysitter was telling you what was happening in real time?
Just think about all of the major players in Hollywood or in the entertainment world who they said made a lot of money and did a lot for this, you know, entertainment world in America. Your Bill Cosby's, your Michael Jacksons, your Prince, your Diddy's, your Jay-Z's, your Kanye's. Their names have been ran through the mud, regardless of their crimes, because they're guilty if they did something. But we know that a lot of times other nationalities don't get plastered the way ours do. It's not that we're crying about it. We just recognize the play. We see what's taking place when it comes to our people.
Muscati answered yes. Johnson asked, and what did your dog's baby?
And the weaponization of even our counterparts, the women, sometimes the children, family, close friends, it starts to occur more and more often.
Babysitter say to you about what she saw? Muscati answered, she told me my car was on fire. Johnson asked, was anyone else present at your house at the time? Muscati said no. Johnson asked, where were you? Muscati said, I was at my ex-girlfriend's sister's house. Johnson asked, approximately how far away from your house were you? Muscati answered, like 45 minutes or something like that. Johnson asked, where was your car at the time your babysitter called? Muscati said, in the driveway. Muscati said his friend Chip took photos of the Porsche as he drove back to his house. The photos show a hole in the top of the Porsche. There's also damage to the driver's seat from where the Molotov cocktail left burn marks, and there's damage to the door. The car was so badly damaged, Muscati said it couldn't be repaired. When he arrived at his house, he said the bottle from the Molotov cocktail was on the ground. It had been in the driver's seat. When asked his reaction to his car being torched, it was very simple. Muscati said, he said, what the F word? Muscati said the cops were at his house and he filed a police report, and it was his understanding this was no accident. A couple of days later, Muscati said he had his manager set up a meeting with Combs through his head of security, D-Rock, at the Soho house. Muscati testified, I walked in and I met D-Rock. He was escorting me into the room, and then I got to the room. It was one wall was all windows, and Sean Combs was standing there staring out the window with his hands behind his back like a Marvel supervillain. Yeah, it was just me and him in the room. No security,
like that,
nobody. Muscati said, we discussed, pretty much the whole story about how me and Cassie first started to date to what it was to how it ended. And his whole point was, we were homies, that was my girl. I let him know that, she told me they were broken up and I took her word for it. Yeah. Johnson asked, what was Mr. Combs' demeanor during this meeting? Muscati said, very calm. He kept offering me water. He offered me water twice. Johnson asked, what was your reaction to his demeanor? Muscati said it was very off-putting. It was weird that he was so calm. Muscati said Cassie then showed up, and he testified he was upset to find out that she had gone back to Sean Combs. He told the jury, quote, she pretty much kind of explained that we fell in love and things just happened and, Muscati testified, yeah, we stood up, shook hands, and as I was shaking his hand, I said, what are we going to do about my car? I made sure to ask him right when our hands were clasped together, where he couldn't run away and I could look at him square in his eyes. And he looked right back at me, very cold stare, and said, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, okay. I took my hand from his.
Why would he admit to something like that? He can go to prison for some shit like that. Come on now. But even when I look at a guy like Kid Cudi, I wouldn't have never thought he would, come out and testify like this. But maybe he had to, There were so many people talking about it. He must have been told someone what occurred. And maybe he wanted to get that out. Maybe he wanted to say that. He had never intended on, holding on to it. He was waiting on that perfect time for it to occur. Hey, ain't knock it. I think that I don't know if it's truly one of those things that will get get Diddy processed or taken down. My fault. I'm busy. I'm trying to chop up this, make this thumbnail. All this black love gossip. rock.
And he said, wait, I thought we were cool. Is there a problem? I was like, you said you didn't burn my car, right? You said that's your word. He said, yeah. I was like, that's it. When asked again, Miscuddy said Combs's tone of voice was very calm. And after that day, there were no more break-ins at his home and no more car fires. A couple of years later, Miscuddy said he saw Combs at the Soho house again, this time with his daughter. He said Combs said, man, I just want to apologize for everything and all of the BS. There were no more conflicts with Sean Combs, and Miscuddy said he made peace with it. Then came the cross-examination by attorney Brian Steele, who represented Young Thug. Steele set out to score some points, and he did. Steele questioned Miscuddy about whether he knew that fingerprints and DNA samples were taken from his Porsche back in 2012. Miscuddy said he called police about the incident a few times, but was not aware that DNA from the car came back as a female sample. Steele also pointed out that there were no sightings of Sean Combs around Miscuddy's property. Then the conversation turned to Cassie Ventura. Miscuddy confirmed that Cassie ended their relationship in January of 2012, and he was confused because they had been talking and seeing each other for about a year. And he said at that time he wasn't aware that Cassie was seeing Sean Combs at the same time. Steele asked, Ms. Ventura was not frank with you, true? Miscuddy answered, true. Steele asked, she played you. That was your words, right? Miscuddy said yes. Steele asked, you had no clue. When she played you, she was convincing about that, right? Miscuddy said, no clue. Steele asked, you were with her a lot, right? Miscuddy said, mm-hmm. Steele asked, true? Miscuddy said yes. Steele then pointed out that Sean Combs actually asked Miscuddy in 2011 to do a song with Cassie Ventura. That was how the two met. Steele asked, you were in a studio doing your art with Ms. Ventura, that true? Miscuddy said yes. Steele asked, and that's how you guys really became close, right? Miscuddy said, we were cool before. Miscuddy asked, and this didn't hurt your relationship, right? It was nice. You enjoyed the time with her, true? Miscuddy said, yeah, it was truly just friends at that time.
Man, you couldn't have possibly been friends with her and not, Come on now, bro. I don't believe that. I don't think that. Come on, bro. You know that you knew about Diddy. A lot of people knew about Diddy already with that. Why wouldn't it? Why would it be any different when it comes to you all of a sudden? You don't know what's going on. So I think that's cap. I might be completely wrong about that. Mm.
Steele asked, Mr. Combs wasn't around you and Ms. Ventura when you were with her, right? Miscuddy said no. Steele asked, and she wasn't getting all these text messages from him to your knowledge when you were with her, right? Miscuddy said, not to my knowledge. Steele also confirmed with Miscuddy that Cassie told him that Combs was physically abusive toward her, but she never told Miscuddy that Sean Combs sexually abused her. Steele also got Miscuddy to say that Cassie Ventura was living two different lives when she was spending time with him. And during that meeting with Combs at the Soho house in 2012, after his car was torched, he said Combs was gracious, made no threats, and had no weapons on him. During redirect, Emily Johnson used Miscuddy to remind the jury about incidents where Cassie and Capricorn Clark confided in him about Combs's volatile behavior. Toward the end, Miscuddy admitted that it was that behavior that made him walk away from his relationship with Cassie. Johnson asked, why did your relationship with Ms. Ventura end despite having feelings for her? Miscuddy said the drama, it was just getting out of hand and kind of wanted to give her some space. Johnson said, "What drama are you talking about?" Miscuddy said the break-in and everything. Johnson asked, "Why did you want to give it space?" Miscuddy said, "Just feels like things were just getting out of hand, and for my safety, for her safety, I just thought." Miscuddy's responses prompts an objection in a sidebar where the parties go back and forth about whether or not it's proper for the jury to hear the rest of what he was going to say. Steele told Judge at a sidebar that he was going to move for a mistrial because he expected Miscuddy to answer that Combs was violent, and he had been told that Combs had had other people killed. The defense is adamant it's highly prejudicial against Combs, but the government says they're just trying to get him to talk about his safety concerns that he had at the end of his relationship with Cassie. Ultimately, the judge decided that Emily Johnson must move on from this type of questioning. The testimony of Kid Cudi ended with him telling the jury that he believed that Sean Combs lied to him.
So what was it like in the courtroom when Kid Cudi was testifying? Elizabeth Milner with Law and Crime was there. So Elizabeth, were the jurors, did it seem like they knew who Kid Cudi was when he walked in and took the stand?
Yeah, it didn't seem that way from what I could tell, but I feel like from everyone in the gallery, they were there and they were ready to see Kid Cudi, see him walk inside that courtroom. It felt kind of like a movie moment a little bit where everyone's turned around and then all of a sudden he just walks across to the witness stand, takes his seat, does the oath, all that. But, him coming in, he was super casual. He had a motorcycle jacket. He had a white T-shirt on. Even like from other witnesses that I could see testifying, they're always in suits. They're in more professional type of wear and that thing. But as far as Kid Cudi is concerned, yeah, motorcycle jacket, his earring, his jeans, just walked up to the stand pretty casual. I didn't see the cigarette smoking or anything like that. But, when he was on the stand, he was very casual even throughout. He just seemed like he was just there to kind of speak his piece, say his part, and then just kind of move on from it. And he seemed like he was just kind of just ready to get this part over with for sure.
And he seemed like he was a little bit of a charmer, actually, on the stand. And I'm getting that just from the transcripts because it sounds like he was just authentic. He was just him. And there were some laughs, from what I understand, in the courtroom from some of his
on X.
Hey guys, so I just want to say, man, I've been seeing all the love and support, and I just want to say thank you so much, man. People have been hitting me up the past week, just checking in, and even today, and it really means a lot to me, man. You guys are the best. I love y'all. This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me, and yeah, I love y'all, man. Big love. Go stream Neverland.
So let's talk about Kid Cudi's testimony. I want to bring in Nima Rahmani. He's an entertainment lawyer, also a former federal prosecutor. So he knows all about this stuff. So obviously they're bringing Kid Cudi and Nima to talk about this thing about the car and the car being blown up or set on, the Molotov cocktail. It wasn't really blown up, but there was obvious damage to the vehicle. And this plays into the RICO charge, the racketeering conspiracy charge. Does this really, in your opinion, really back up that charge?
I think it does, Anjanette. Maybe this is the former federal prosecutor in me. This is why. Cassie testified that Combs made the threat directly to blow up the car. Maybe we expected a kind of a mob-style explosion, but arson doesn't require that, right? A Molotov cocktail in your porch that burns it is enough. And the reason I like this is obviously the defense got out that, it wasn't definitively tied to Combs and that the DNA in the vehicle was a female's. Right. But I think there's enough circumstantial evidence, given the threat and the timing, for the jurors to believe that it was Combs. And I like these types of predicate acts.
It sound like he definitely had a lot of involvement when it came to this situation. For him to be present, asking questions, hey, did you have something? Sound like he was pretty involved. Why would that be so difficult? You know what I mean?
because
Oh,
it allows the prosecution to somehow potentially get to racketeering without proving sex trafficking. I think they've proven sex trafficking, but let's say the jurors think that this was all consensual, the freak-offs. You have arson, you have extortion, you have blackmail, you have kidnapping, you have other potential activities that can get you that pattern of racketeering without sex trafficking.
So I want to break that down a little bit, and we're going to get to that. But you made two good points there. On cross-examination, Brian Steele, got out that there was female DNA that they tested for in the car. So we don't know that Combs's DNA was ever linked to this. He's accused of running a criminal enterprise. So it's not like he would have gotten his hands dirty and done this himself. He would have had somebody else do it possibly. But they didn't explicitly tie it to Combs, but Combs apparently said a couple of years later, hey man, I'm sorry about all that. That was my girl. I thought we were homies. So he kind of apologized for it. But then Brian Steele also brings up this whole thing about, Cassie playing Kid Cudi. He felt that she had played him. And that I think could be very powerful for the jury. Don't you think that could be powerful for the jury? Because it goes to possibly, as you brought up, you don't think they've proven sex trafficking, but it could go to this whole thing about Cassie, the defense argument that she's an opportunist.
Yeah, I think the government has proven sex trafficking, but I know people watching, some of them don't believe they have. But you're right, Anjanette. Brian Steele's one of the best. I mean, obviously, we covered him for many months on the Young Thug case. It seems like a never-ending trial. And so the fact that he was added to the team to cross-examine this witness really shows how good he is. I agree with you. I thought he got three very good points out. The first is with respect to the arson, that really there's no direct evidence tying Diddy to it, maybe the threat and the apology years later. I also thought that there was good evidence that Cassie might have talked about physical harm that she suffered by Combs, but she never mentioned any sexual assault or sexual abuse. That was a very important point that came out during cross. And then, like you said, the fact that Cassie was playing both of them, I thought that was a good point that came out as well. Maybe she wasn't the victim.
All right, enough of that, y'all. Yeah, I'm definitely finna get up out of here. It's your boy L Boogie CLT. We gotta go ahead and end this live. Hit the like button, sub up to the channel, share the content. And until then, we out.